Gainesville, The Villages, 1370 AM, 96.3 FM, The Source.
All right, 25 minutes before 10 o'clock. Thank you for tuning in. Oh my gosh, it's been a long time ago. We had Robert Schuller as a guest. If you don't remember him, he has since passed away, but he was a pastor, a religious guy. He had what was it, Crystal Cathedral Ministries or something? Anyway,
yes.
He was an author, so he was on the show to promote his book. And one of the things I remember him saying was, what would you do if you knew you couldn't fail? What would you do if you knew you couldn't fail? And it's a kind of an interesting mindset to try to push forward with something, even though we all know we do fail. But maybe that's kind of the point. But how do you get your mind? How do you wrap something around in your brain, I guess, so that you believe that it's even worth going towards? You know, whatever it is. What do you do? How do you change that? It's like that old. Oh gosh, who's that guy that played? It was Don Knotts, right?
Yeah.
Or maybe it wasn't him. But anyway, there was this movie where this guy took over somebody else's body or something, and then
he was a fish.
And then he could think about things that he wouldn't normally think about, right? So it's like if I went to a gym, for example, and instead of really working hard, I said to the gym guy who's in good shape, hey, can you just put your brain in my body and I'll come back like in a month or in a year, and then you'll have me all in shape, right? Well, it's probably not going to happen. Charlie Harary has an idea, though. He's written it in a book. The book is called Unlocking Greatness, The Unexpected Journey from the Life You Have to the Life You Want. Charlie is an attorney. He's a lecturer on business intelligence, performance management, and personal empowerment. He's the senior director of capital markets. He's an RXR Realty. I guess that's what he sells. Property, right? He's the host of a weekly radio show on the NSN radio network, so he's going to have no trouble at all doing this. He's also the host of the Unlocking Greatness podcast. Charlie Harary, you are
He's amazing.
Busy guy. Good morning, Charlie. How are you?
Good morning. Thank you for having me on your show.
So where are you, first of all? Where are you calling from? I'd like to know.
I'm calling from Long Island, New York.
Long Island. I grew up on Long Island. I grew up in Merritt.
Is that right?
Yeah, where are you?
I'm in Uniondale, not too far. I can probably see Merritt from my window.
Nassau Coliseum, right?
That's it. Across the street.
Yeah, I used to sweep the floors. That was my big job. I used to put kitty litter on vomit. How about that for a job?
There you go. There you go. We appreciate your service.
So thank you for being on there. How's the weather today, by the way, on Long Island? How is it?
It's freezing. I'm dreaming of being next to you in studio. If we're lucky, we'll get a little bit of warm, but we don't really get it going until late April here. So we're just happy to get over 30 degrees up here.
Do you know, I want to use my time when I worked at the Nassau Coliseum as a way to get into this book. Because when I worked there, that was truly my job. And I remember looking around thinking, oh my gosh, because here's the situation. When you're at I don't even know if they still use it. Do they still use the Coliseum?
Sort of. Well, the teams aren't there anymore, but they still use it for concerts and stuff.
Okay, so I remember the concerts because I would look up at the stage and there would be this very successful singer, and I'm there sweeping the floor. And I'm thinking, how do I get from here to there? What do I need to do? And I think that's probably answered in your book. I think the answer to that question is what you're writing about. Am I right?
Yeah. In fact, there's so many answers to that question. It's a great question. How do I get from where I am to where I want to be? And it begins with understanding the resources that you have. What I think most people don't fully appreciate as they go through life is that their mind is so much more powerful than they ever thought possible. And when they learn how to use their mind, how to train their mind, how to manipulate their mind properly, their chances of sort of moving up through life go up exponentially.
How much physical, actual doing is necessary in order for your mind to believe in you? How do you get yourself to believe in yourself? I'm wondering about the physical part. Is there anything physical that you actually have to do?
Well, a lot of it is mental. A lot of what people, if you study the people that have achieved these great goals, a lot of them they started from sort of more humble beginnings. And in fact, if you really look at people that have everything handed to them, usually they don't make it in the end. And it's because in order to accomplish things, you have to have a strong mind, right? You have to build the muscle of your mind. One of the things that I discovered as I was doing the research was that, much like going to the gym, right? You go to the gym, you can't do a push-up. And then you're like, I'm going to learn push-ups. And after 2 years, you're doing 50 push-ups. Because people know when they go to the gym, I've got a muscle, and all I got to do is work this muscle out, and it will get stronger. Well, when it comes to our minds, we don't think that. Because we don't see it in the mirror, we don't realize that the mind is a muscle. And your thoughts change the structure, and the thoughts you put in and the work you do mentally will actually literally change your mind. And the more work you do on your mind, what to think about, what you make yourself think about, the rituals that you do, the visions that you lay out, the time you spend being intentional. And I'm not talking about sitting around closing your eyes and hoping that you get $1 million from the sky. This is real work. It's just mental work. And the more you do it, the stronger your mind gets, and the more you go out into the world with a clarity as to what actions you should take and a resilience when you fail.
Do you follow people or study people who are doing something similar to what you want to do?
Yeah, and in the business world, we have this rule that success leaves clues.
Yeah.
Right. Lots of times when you want to figure out how to get somewhere, the best way to do it is you study those that have gotten somewhere, and then you read like their bios, not like the current newspaper article that sort of skips through all the hard part and makes it look like they just sort of stumbled into success.
Right.
Yeah, because you had to fit it into X amount of words.
Yeah.
But if you really looked at people's lives and you study what they did,
yes.
But you know what the truth is? A lot of it, if I can sort of encapsulate it here, a lot of it is striving to become a little bit better every day. The idea of greatness, we have a misconception that it's like when I get to the pedestal. Not true. Most of life, when you feel that inner sense of greatness, which is what a lot of the book is trying to get people towards, the journey in, not the journey out, is really just a decision to move the bar up in how you operate every day of your life in everything that you do.
Do you have any ideas, maybe tricks that would be the carrot in front of the horse? Like, what can we do to motivate ourselves to do that? A good one that comes to my mind, and there's got to be others, is simply being a parent. I think once you're a dad or a mom, and maybe women think this instinctively and men don't think it until there's actually a child in front of them. But we say, oh my gosh, I got to start making money. So there's a carrot, in other words. Are there any other tricks that besides having a baby?
So the baby's a very good trick, right? And having to come home and seeing a little kid that you got to provide for definitely helps getting you off the couch. So that's a big one. I would say there's two parts of two sort of key exercises in the book that if somebody really takes the time to do, it'll really trigger something. And the first thing really is about vision. Like you said earlier, one of the reasons why people aren't greater, if you will, is because they don't have the vision to be greater. They think they're not enough. But as they get closer, when they get put against the wall, they find something inside them that was always there. And I tell people all the time that are sort of, going through life and not feeling inspired. And this is a little bit crazy, but you know what? You got to live a little nuts. Take the time, and in the book we have this exercise, and sit down and write down your eulogy. And you literally sit down and write out, who's going to be talking about you when the day comes, and what are they going to be saying. And what that does is it starts to orient you around the things that you care most about life. Because life has a great way of distracting us forever.
Yeah.
Especially now.
Right.
Back in the quote-unquote old days, like you left the house without taking like your phone and you just somehow survived. Like, like today, like if you leave the house and like you don't have your phone with you, like you think you're never going to make it back home.
Yeah,
right?
you panic.
You panic. Like, you ever get that feeling where you pass by, the most valuable thing in the house today is the chargers. You know what I'm talking about? You have 10 phones, there's only one charger left, right? You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah,
so you ever get that feeling like you leave your phone, you charge it, but like someone else takes it, and you're like, wait, who took my phone out of the charger? And you're like, well, like you were on 62%. You're like, yeah, when did I tell you could pull out at 62%, right? So you leave the house and you're on like that 20%, and then Apple tells you, low battery. You ever get that panic?
I hate that.
Oh my gosh, if I get to zero, I'm going to be out here forever. Right?
Yeah,
so, like, we live in a time where, like, if we have 10 seconds that's quiet online, it's right to the phone. And the greatest challenge now is we are a mile wide and an inch deep. We're not deep. We're running around bouncing to every little thing, and as a result, we always feel perpetually unsatisfied, which is how I opened the book, the first chapter. If you want to do something... Yeah.
Your book is very complete, but it seems like there are two things in there that contradict each other, but you make them both work. When you grow your business, you have to have objectivity, and when you grow yourself, you have to have that spirituality and that belief, and somehow you make them both come together.
Yeah, oh, thank you for saying that. And you know, that's the challenge, because everything in life is the level in which you push it. Some people will live the level of the physical, the surface, and that's fine, and that's in everything, their jobs, their careers, their marriages, their children. Some people push to the metaphysical. They know that there's more in life. There's something intangible, a spiritual element, if you will, and that element comes out whenever you sacrifice for something. When you sacrifice physical for something real, what you get back is more spiritual. And, you know, for an example, I'll do something really quick. If anyone ever is in a bad mood, try this out. Whenever you're in a bad mood, whenever you pass by a door, hold it for the person behind you. And you'll find that in the moment that you sacrifice a few minutes of your time, you will, as that person gets the door, you will feel some intangible sort of shock. Why? Because when you want to go deeper, it's sacrificing. When you want to have a better marriage, then you got to look and say, how can I sacrifice a little bit more for my spouse? If you want to be a good parent, if you want to be better at work, you want to have a good career, you know how that usually works? You sit at your desk and say, okay, what can I do a little bit more for my customers, clients, or my boss? Something beyond what they expect of me.
Right, I agree.
And when you push that limit every day, just an inch, if you live your life and all you do is you move that level an inch every day, you wake up one morning and you don't even recognize yourself, and because you're achieving true greatness.
The advice you're giving is really good advice. I'm wondering, how do we give this advice to people who have a hard time hearing it? I'm going to use an example. You pull up to the red light, and there's a guy with a sign that says, I need help, and you roll down your window. What is more valuable, to give him a couple of dollars or to give him some advice?
Well, that's a great question, right? Because, you know, the things you give need to be received in a proper way, right? You know, parents want to give their kids everything. If you give your kids too much too young, you end up hurting them. And I find that in life, one of the greatest acts of giving is knowing how to constrict the giving so that it fits the receiver. For some people, they'll take the advice from you. For some people, they won't even hear it, or they can't hear it. And what they really need is a smile, because they don't feel like a human being. And even if it's $1 or a quarter, just the interaction that they're there can change their whole day. And part of the goal of the giver is to look around and say, okay, let me custom tailor my giving to each individual around me so that it benefits them a little bit more every day.
When we talk to people from different businesses, they always bring up that word culture of their business, and you really put a lot of stock in that meaning.
Oh, yeah, culture is everything. Because at the end of the day, all you have are your employees, right? If you look at, for example, this radio show is incredible because of you guys. It's not it's not the broadcast booth, it's not the microphones, it's the people. People make things grow. And when you want people to thrive, it really starts from the top. And when you build a business geared on excellence, but the right excellence, not how can we make a buck, how can we think of ourselves in every single transaction and then sort of shave off those pennies and put it in our pocket, but how do we add value and blow people away? Then when those people come to work every day, that's the environment. And if you see it in sports, right? How come some teams make it more than others? Sometimes it's talent, but you know there's a lot of it? It's culture. When there's a culture of excellence, everybody thrives and gets better themselves.
The book is called Unlocking Greatness. It's written by Charlie Harary, a fellow Long Islander.
Yes.
By the way, we don't say Long Islander. Everybody thinks there's a hard J. We never... If you're from Long Island, you never do that. Am I right, Charlie? We don't do that.
Absolutely right.
I don't know who started that. Doesn't that drive you nuts?
Totally. I find myself saying Long Island. They're like, how long is that I? I'm like, just go with me.
You know what? The advice is so good. I really hope that people embrace what you're saying. I mean, it makes a lot of sense. When did this happen for you? Have you always been aware of what you're writing about, or was there an aha moment for you?
That's a great question. For me, I started off my career as an attorney. I was working in these big corporate law firms, and one time I was at this closing, and I saw a guy walk in the room, and some people that they walk in the room, they feel they exude a different energy. When that happens. And I literally walked up to this individual and said, "Can I ask you a question? Can you talk to me a little bit?" I was very interested always in how things work in life. And he said to me something so important. And he said to me the following that changed my life. This is 15, 20 years ago. He said, most people work in their lives, right? You work in your life. You have a job, you have a career, your family. Very few people work on their lives. Make sure you work on your life. So it was then that I started to read these books, take these classes, delve into this research. And like everything in life, it starts to evolve. I started teaching more, I started lecturing more, I started teaching at a business school. And people started asking me for advice, and I started having to write it down, because how many times can you repeat yourself? And then that sort of led to the book. But it was only when I started to delve into this material that I started to have literally dozens of what I call micro aha moments. Dozens of oh my gosh, this is what science and spirituality says. Why am I going left when everyone's telling me to go right? And it's when you delve into this material, when you start to work on your life, along the way, you start to see the world with new lenses. And that, to me, was a huge shift in my life.
How do you keep the lines of communication open? Because sometimes people won't communicate because they're afraid they're going to be embarrassed.
Yeah, that's the question, right? A lot of times in life, people just will refuse to communicate with others, and they're just scared to be vulnerable. That's what it comes down to, this fear. And sometimes when people don't communicate, we take that offensively, and we think it's a problem in them to us. Most of the time, it's just that they're not secure in themselves. And so many times the way is almost like counterintuitively. It's to recognize that we can't take from them. They can't give. They're not ready yet. We just need to sort of drip some love on them and some acceptance on them. And many times they'll finally sort of get used to our sort of unconditional connection to them. And that may be something they never got from anyone before. And usually when that happens, they'll start to slowly open up those lines right back to us.
In nature, there are animals called mammals, and we depend on our mothers for nurturing when we are first born. And then there's animals that come from eggs, and they're on their own right from the beginning. They got, I gotta have to eat some food, and there's no mother to nurse off of. And I think as human beings, we have to break away from that, because we are born to be attached to somebody else. And that attachment, if you don't let go, you will find yourself, and you talk about this in the book, so I want people to know that you either are going to blame somebody for your problems, or you're going to depend on somebody for your comfort, or something else of that nature. And not that there's anything wrong with having a partner. It's just that if you blame other people for your mistakes, then you're never going to not make those mistakes.
Oh, Mike, that's exactly right. And many times the evolution of the human from people, you grow up and we're born this way specifically, I believe, right? We could, God could have created us where you just pop out of the womb and you're like, God, okay, thanks, Mom, appreciate this. I'll call you later.
Right.
We teach them off. It could have been, and there are animals in the animal kingdom that's basically what happened.
Alligators do that.
They're like, thanks, Mom, appreciate it. See you later. And I'll see you at Thanksgiving, but we don't do that. We have a period of time where we're in need of somebody sacrificing for us, because that's what's important. It's the connections. And so when you come into this world, someone's sacrificing for you. Now, the greatest gift you can give them is by being a giver right back. But some people get so used to that world of being taking, they can't. They're not confident, or they're just too self-absorbed to ever shift from being the taker to the giver. And we see people like this, right? They walk in a room and it's all about them all the time. And they're just shocked that the world doesn't cater to them every single second. They're good, they're nice, they're emotionally in many ways that same little kid in the crib that looks at mom and says, I know you're exhausted and you haven't showered for a few days, but it's 2:00 in the morning and I'm hungry, get me a bottle.
Yeah, right.
It's that same mentality. But our real job in life, really, if we think about it, is to quickly become the giver. And the giver is independent. And the giver doesn't blame, because the giver takes responsibility. And the giver, that's the greatest sense of greatness. And it's people are so scared, but they don't know that if you just get out of that mentality, if you just stop blaming, you're going to feel so much better. The quick fix of blaming somebody else has long-lasting implications of disempowerment. But if you just sort of cut that off and say, I'm a big boy, I'm a big girl, I'm ready now, I want it on my shoulders, what you get in return is so much greater than anything that blaming or depending or complaining would ever give you.
You have different examples from different people, and one was from the Twin Towers.
Yeah, the Twin Towers was one of the most important events of my life, and the lives of, I'm sure, anybody that was in the city and around the country. And to me, the event, it really solidified home the story in the book that you're referencing, and thank you for bringing it up, is really a story about a woman who lost her husband, and they had gotten into a fight in the morning on that Tuesday, and he gets to the tower, and he was in the second tower, and the plane had hit underneath his office. And he used the last few seconds of his life to call his wife. And later, the story was told to me that she basically came home, she did carpool and some errands, and saw the answering machine and clicked on it as she watched on TV her husband's building collapse. And it really does, like I said earlier about the eulogy, it really does shift and put life into perspective. We think we're all immortal, right? We have so many things we'll do one day. Tomorrow is when I do everything hard, because why do it today? I'll have tomorrow, and I'll have tomorrow with my friends and family members. And what the Twin Towers remind us is that every day is a gift. And you know what? If you can't be great today, then why do you deserve tomorrow for? If you have somebody in your life today that you love, well, guess what? This is the time where you make those amends, where you say the things that change the relationship. And when I walked out of that house, when I heard that story, it literally shifted the course of my life.
Sure.
Because I stopped waiting for tomorrow. Like, why?
Yeah.
Because I'm scared? But you know what? Okay. Like, why wait till we're at the brink of real death or illness before we start being real?
Yeah, you're so smart. I real quick, I have a World Trade Center story from a guest we had. She was not in the World Trade Center at the time. She was working on Wall Street, though, at that point in her life, and she really hated her job. And she was making good money. So she was like stuck, because how do I leave something I hate because it's justified by the amount of money? Well, when 9/11 happened, she thought exactly like you're saying, that people she knew died. It could have easily have been her, because she was in that building, those buildings a lot. So she moved here to Florida. She set up a T-shirt shop in New Smyrna Beach, and that's where she still is. And she doesn't make anywhere near the money she used to make, but in her world, the greatness that she unlocked was the freedom. So greatness doesn't always mean money. It sometimes can mean freedom or anything. And
I'm so happy you brought that up. Exactly. That's what I hope people get from the book. Don't get thrown by the way society tells you that these are the tokens of greatness. It's not about the things that people tell you it is. It's about your greatness, and you're absolutely right. Inner greatness is so much more important than external greatness. And the ability to be great in every day of your life. And to this point, the example of this woman, to sit in a job that you hate and have golden handcuffs because society says your greatness is based on your net worth.
Right.
No, it's not.
Right.
No, it's not. Right. And you're right. And to some people, and it, like you said, it takes those moments of just sort of seeing clearly. But when you live a life striving for inner greatness, you stop worrying about, the likes and the views and the net worth and the size of home. You may get all those things, but that's not the goal of life.
Charlie Harary up on Long Island. We were there just back in Thanksgiving. We were up there, so I love it there. Even if it is freezing, and you should really be in Florida.
I feel the warmth through the phone, so it's okay.
Do you remember the Asbury Jukes, by the way, Southside Johnny? Do you remember them?
I think so.
They had a song, "Won't You Come to Florida for a Vacation?" Come on, Charlie. The book is called Unlocking Greatness. What a wonderful topic, and gosh, you've said it all, Charlie. I have a copy of the book. If you want the copy that was sent to us, you can call me right now, and I'll leave it for you. The rest of us have to go buy it. I found it on Amazon. Do you have a website, Charlie?
Sure, it's charlieharary.com. You can, if you have a podcast, if you want to just go to iTunes and search my name, Unlocking Greatness is also a podcast, not only a book. So I got that, and if you go to Amazon and just type in Unlocking Greatness, the book will come up, and I hope you buy it, and I hope you enjoy it.
Yeah, thank you so much for being on the air with us. Really, really good stuff. All right, we will be right back.
Broadcasting from the Paddock Mall Studios, this is WOCA, Ocala, Gainesville, The Villages, 1370 AM, 96.3 FM, The Source.
Fox News Radio, I'm Chris Foster. Kids around the country are walking out of school this morning, 10 o'clock local time, as a protest against gun violence and a memorial to those killed.
We need to talk about school safety and being kind to one another.